My name is Stephanie Loganville, and I'm our partner development manager here at Ruby. And we are your newest sponsor. So, hey, hi, hello. And we're so honored to be here with you and start the process of really getting to know the members of Mothers Esquire better. And I have to say, from the moment I hopped on the call with Michelle and Farah, I knew this organization was one that we had to be a part of. The mindset and culture fostered here of empowerment, the desire to make an impact on the legal industry and create a better future for women to come aligns with our goals as a company as well. And we are all seeking better growth and a better tomorrow. And that's what brings us to today's topic, giving yourself grace, moms tackling work, family, and life in the time of COVID. Talk about a quadruple whammy. We have a lot of amazing questions to hit today, and I have a few notes before we begin. If everyone that's listening in will take some time to please open up the chat panel and be prepared to answer and ask questions. And also, please take a quick moment to change in your comments section the to all panelists and attendees. So that way we are all going to see your responses. I think by default, it just goes to panelists, and I want everyone to see your questions and comments and remarks, though we will take time to read them out loud as well, time permitting. And I will be posting all of the questions in the chat channel as well for reference for the panel and you all. And panelists, just the same kind of a thing that we did yesterday. If we're running short on time, I am going to use the little raise hand feature that I've just done right here to let you know it's time to wrap things up, since I don't have a blinking light for you all. But that'll just be my silent way of saying, let's get going. All right, if there are any questions, please feel free, before we start, please feel free to put them in the comment section, and we will be paying close attention to that. And of course, this is going to be recorded, so you can come back for laughs and giggles and just lamenting, whatever the case may be. And we ask that you do take time to answer the questions, because we are all in this COVID reality together, and your situation may reflect that of another member. And you may also have a solution to a problem that would benefit others as well. And we are here first and foremost to create a community, and your experiences, your voice really matters here. And I think we have all of our panelists here. So what we are going to do quickly is do an introduction. And for my panelists, I'll call out your name, but if you would be so kind as to just state your full name, your job, family makeup, and your favorite COVID survival activity or treat. And I'm just going to go across the windows that I see right now, and we'll have Rebecca go first.
Hello, everyone. I am Rebecca Grimes. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Ruby, and my family makeup is my husband, who works at a hospital, has been working at a hospital the entire time. We have two children, a 6-year-old daughter and an almost 5-year-old son, Olivia and George. And we were just joking beforehand that it takes a village, and it does take a village. I have a support system of my mother moved in with us, and my brother moved in with us, and my in-laws live a mile away. So I have tons of extra sets of hands to help with e-learning, kindergarten from remotely for the first year in school for my daughter, and our made up preschool that we put my son through for him to be ready for kindergarten next year. And, I think that, one thing that I have found a love for right now has been puzzles. And so obviously we do puzzles with the kids, but really hard puzzles. I did this Lego 100 piece Lego person puzzle, and it was one of those nights where I was like, we're finishing this puzzle tonight. And my husband gave up, like, all the white pieces. He just couldn't handle it. And so that's giving me joy right now, is being able to focus and see something be completed. So
I have to say, of all the COVID activities, I haven't done a single puzzle. I got the box out, and it stayed on my kitchen table for about a month, and it went promptly back with all the other board games. And I will pass the torch on over to Stephanie.
Thanks, Stephanie. My name is Stephanie Copeland-Weber. It's a mouthful, so I usually go by SCW. I am the Chief Operating Officer at Ruby. My family makeup is my husband, who I neglected to mention yesterday when I answered this question, but he's in there. I have a 11-year-old son, an 8-year-old daughter, a dog, and 7 chickens that I added right at the beginning of COVID as a coping mechanism and distraction. And I'm with Rebecca on the puzzles. One of my favorite COVID purchases was a puzzle caddy that allows me to put it away when I'm not working on it and bring it back out. But my favorite treat has been that as we get to the last Friday night of every month, my husband and I sort of celebrate surviving another month and open up, rather than an everyday bottle of wine, like a really nice bottle of wine to celebrate that achievement, because that's how it feels these days.
And it's always very well earned. And I will pass it on over to Sarah.
All right, hey everybody, my name is Sarah Mannion. I am a partner at a small firm in Jacksonville, Florida called King & Mannion, PA. I primarily do real estate transaction litigation. I also do bankruptcy litigation, probate, and some estate planning as well. Family makeups, I've got my husband, and he works in the like home inspection industry, so he never misses at work, going in and out of people's houses all the time, which is frightening, especially in those early days. And then my stepdaughter Gracie, she's 16, she lives with us, and my daughter Charlotte is 5. She is in preschool, and we'll start kindergarten next year. And then my baby JJ, he just turned 15 months, so we're busy with them. And then of course, during COVID, we adopted a puppy because why not? So we have Junie, who's a very hyperactive lab mix. So she has been our most challenging COVID activity for sure. But one fun thing that we started doing, my in-laws bought one of those giant movie blow-up screens, like for outside, and they got like a projector. And since all this started, we've all kind of been investing a little bit more in our, in our homes, in our backyard, stuff like that. So they have like a fire pit paved area made. And so we just have like movie night with the kids and, do s'mores and marshmallows and watch movies. This past Saturday, we watched The Goonies, and that was a good time. So that's been really fun to do. And I don't know that, we would have done that if it weren't for all this, COVID time. So.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, there are hidden blessings within COVID, and I think that's one of them. And I also have to say, I just get a giggle out of watching everyone's reactions, because the moment you said JJ was 15 months, my favorite thing, I think nearly every panelist went, "Oh,
he's cute."
Oh, it's perfect. Alrighty, and we'll take it on over to Kate.
We also said, "Oh," because like our kids are at the stinky age where they've now developed attitudes. And we're like, "Oh, I want to go back there." So I'm Kate Winkler. I'm CEO of Ruby. I have a husband, Paul, and an 11-year-old daughter, Leilani, who really does actually behave like she's about 15 right now. So being stuck in a house with her is super fun right now. And one of the things that she actually asked for to help her get through COVID is she really wanted a video game console. So I actually bought her an old school arcade, like Donkey Kong, Galaga, Miss Pac-Man, because at least I knew I can destroy her in all of those games. And we have so much fun playing them, but she's getting really, really good right now. So unfortunately, she's mastered all of the 80s arcade games, and now she's given me a ton of attitude for it.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. I would die for a PlayStation old console setup, the kind that you had to like take the little, I don't know, it looks like a videotape almost, and you had to blow on it whenever it got too hot. Those were the good old days. And my little Game Boy. And I will pass it on over to Susan.
Hi, my name's Susan Peters. I'm on the board of MothersEsquire. I was a litigator for a million years, and then I switched over and I'm doing communications and PR for law firms. I have my own business, so that's been fun. I'm a single mom. I have a 7-year-old son. I live in New York. I also have an old dog who's like on her last paw. And I guess, like one thing that's been really great for coping, school reopened again. So we were quarantined for a while and then it came back. So that's been great. And yeah, movie night, like we don't have a big screen, but just movie night with popcorn and having a way to mark the end of the day. Yeah. I mean, and it's been snowy and really cold here. So like playing in the snow has been really fun too. So yeah, outside, getting outside, running around. That's good coping. And wine too.
I'm seeing a trend as we as we go through. I love it. All righty, and Shiro, if you could go next.
Hi, I'm Shiro, also go as Shirazi. I'm a trademark attorney with legal Pulse IP, which is a legal Zoom company. We do have an attorney-led trademark filing practice, and I'm one of the attorneys there. I live in Houston with my husband, who was my high school sweetheart. I married. We started dating at 17. We have two sons, a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old, going on 30, and a dog whom we adore, and a mean cat whom we also adore, but terrorizes all of us. And one of the favorite things we started doing once COVID hit was Friday night pizza and movie. We made a list of all the classic movies and must-see movies of all time. The boys would normally not pick. And we've been going through the list and watching some really nice old classics all over again with them.
I love it. Oh gosh, this is such an amazing group. And I think it is high time we delve right into those questions. And again, I want to remind everyone listening in to please partake and engage in the chat section as we move forward. And I'll be posting the questions in there as well. So let's kick this off. COVID has been tough on all of us. It has changed our lives. So let's vent. This is the fun part. This is the spicy part. I want to listen to you just say, oh, COVID, share with us what has been the biggest challenge for you, whether it's related to work or your family.
I'm happy to go first, and I'm going to take a lens of my family because I do have an only child, and because I live in California, we've had an extended period of shelter in place that happened in late December through basically the middle of February. So for 2 months, my daughter only saw my husband and I, and I like to think we're lovely, happy people all the time. She would beg to differ. And so trying to find ways to engage with her at her level as an 11-year-old has been really hard. So my kitchen has been completely destroyed. There's baking that happens 3 days a week, and there's flour all over every surface. And my dining room table is now an art center and a sewing station. We're making clothes, we're making shoes, we're making epoxy jewelry and Christmas gifts that many people have received. And now we just started a super fun series of doing Bob Ross painting challenges, and our whole family does this, and they're fantastic. And it's actually surprising, going, wow, Bob Ross is really talented. So trying to remember that she didn't ask for this, and remembering to create space and time for her, how it would be normal for her to interact as an 11-year-old. And a lot of times we find ourselves treating her as though she's 35, and we've got to remind ourselves and stop ourselves going, she's 11. I'm like, we've got to be a little bit easier on her. So that would probably be trying to keep that balanced for our daughter.
I can chime in. I think I was trying to parse it into pieces like work, family, and I think one of the challenges is that it's all one messy ball of wax now, right? So, I used to go into an office 5 days a week, all day long. I had a live-in childcare provider who took care of really a lot of things. And so now, there's kind of the constant interruption. So I no longer have that space to like focus on work without interruption. And so just trying to balance all that, which I know everyone is dealing with. And then I think on the flip side, the kids see us, and so they think that's sort of like green light to hang out, which it's harder to create those boundaries even for them to understand, no, I'm working now, no, I can't hang out, I got to go down to my office and work. And then at the end of the day, then they're okay, now you're done. And the reality is, without that person who used to live with us, there's a lot more stuff that my husband and I both have to do between childcare and the cleaning up and all the things that have added up, and we're just exhausted at the end of the day. And so, to Kate's point of like carving out time for them, it's in some ways it's harder because everything is so commingled, and I think we are just more mentally exhausted at the end of every day because of the additions of life and the stress of COVID and the pandemic and all the things that just puts on your mental state. So
I want to jump in and talk about the challenges at work. So my office is small. It's me and my partner, and at the moment we just have our one legal assistant, and our practice is very client centered. So our clients are all individuals, and they're folks who like to come into your office and talk to you. And so in the very beginning when this happened, and I feel like it was this way for all of us, it was just overnight, like, okay, we're shutting down. And how do we do that? And so we also, our building is a Victorian house that was built in 1902. So our infrastructure is not the latest and greatest infrastructure. And also being a small firm, we weren't, cloud-based on, or anything like that, because it was just, we would come into the office, work on our computers and go home for the day. So it was a very big struggle in the beginning of how do we pivot? How can we, put all our information onto the cloud, and what is secure, and how do we interact with our clients, and, setting up like remote payments and all these kinds of things that we had never really done before. Because, we were pretty old school. Clients would come into the office, we would, talk to them, provide our service, whatever. So that was a big struggle, and it was a pretty steep and fast learning curve. Here in Florida, we weren't locked down for all that long. It was probably about 8 to 10 weeks or so. And Kate, I feel you when you talked about being at home with your daughter, because she was 4 then, but my daughter very much loves her friends and being social and going places and doing things. So in the beginning, it was just trying to figure out how to keep her, she didn't have virtual school, right? So how to keep her busy and entertained during the day where I could do what I needed to do. And I would try and come up with like a schedule, and I would be on like homeschool websites, printing out little activities and packets of things. And then of course, then I'd have to help her with it. And it was a struggle. And eventually it was like, all right, well, we're buying a play set, we're buying a blow up pool, do whatever you want to do for these 8 hours of the day. We just sort of learned to let it go. And that was a big struggle, was just, not having that, rigorous schedule or these expectations of her, at 4, to sort of follow this structure without anybody leading her along. It just wasn't realistic. And I don't think it was healthy for her. So that was a very big struggle for us. And of course, my husband, life didn't really change for him a whole lot other than wearing masks and booties and lots of hand sanitizer. So, he would leave for the day and come home and, how was your day? Oh, it was awful. Is how my day was. So that was frustrating too, that, I didn't really have a partner to commiserate with me about, how we were struggling. Because for him it was, life is normal. Things are better now, kids are back in school, thank you God. But it was tough in the beginning. So I'm glad we've progressed a little bit.
And you can commiserate with us now. So
yes, exactly.
Great.
Sarah, I can relate so much to, my husband has left, for his life, outside of, wearing PPE equipment, was relatively unchanged. And so, the idea that, he'd come home and want to have a conversation with me, and I'm like, I've been talking for like 9 hours, 10 hours, and I don't want to talk to anybody right now. And he would have decompressed in the car, and, probably, similar to what Cleo mentioned in the chat, it's time alone. There is never a moment where I am alone. Even if the older dog is annoying sometimes, where I'm just like, go, like, to the extent that like my coping mechanism now is I drive 3 like cities away to go to Costco, because there's one a mile from my house, and I'm like, nope, that's not enough time. Like I need to go way farther than that just to get some alone time for me to have that decompression. And my husband will joke, he's like, where were you at for 2 hours? I was at Costco. I was wandering around. I joked last night, I'll show it because I have no shame. I was at Costco and I found this like root touch up, and I was just like, oh yeah, I need that. Like wandering aimlessly around Costco, spending $400 on stuff that I maybe need, but like I've had to, like, that's been a struggle, is just like, there is no clearing of the head, quiet time that I'm used to having. And still struggling a year later with finding those pockets of time.
So that ties on to what has been my struggle, is having my husband home all the time. He used to travel about 4 days a week. So I had my routine. The boys had their routine. I had my me time at night. And I didn't have to share my bathroom or my bedroom. And so just treating him with kindness, because he's also home all the time, and finding ways to work things out and not snapping at him has been my biggest challenge. So I just put it on the chat, like a few weekends ago, I had him take the boys away because I had been missing before pre-COVID, they used to go on scout camping trips once a month for a weekend. And I loved those weekends where I would go get a massage, go for a facial, have a bubble bath, meet a friend for brunch. And like I lost that part of the me time. Catch up, binge watch The Crown or Bridgerton. And so that has been my challenge. We've now figured out ways around it. We all work in 4 different parts of the house. I converted the guest room into my office, and I have a door that locks. I go for long walks, and I think we've come to some semblance of normalcy, but just finding that me time and being kind to my husband, I think.
The me time was something I was consistently seeing brought up in chat. The me time, quiet hours, whatever the case may be, just that time where you get to decompress is so important. And on that note, let's explore our next question. Being moms, successful attorneys, and businesswomen, we're all naturally high achievers. And explore with us how COVID may have changed your definition of achievement, or how you may have adjusted expectations for yourself. And in that same concept, how have you given yourself grace?
Okay, I'll start. I'm a very organized person by nature, and my house is chaos personified at every single second of the day. And so I've had to accept that there is just going to be stuff everywhere. There's Play-Doh on my kitchen table right now, because my daughter had time after breakfast and wanted to play with Play-Doh before school started and didn't put it away. And so normally I'd be at a 10 level of anxiety. I'm probably only at a 3 today because, she'll eventually clean it up, hopefully before dinner time. But, the other thing that I was very rigid about was my bed. The kids my daughter is 6, my son's about to turn 5. Like we created a bunk bedroom. They had separate rooms. They wanted to sleep together at the beginning of the pandemic because they only had each other to play with. They became each other's best friends. Every night they sneak into my bed. Every single night. In the beginning, I would like get up in the middle of the night and carry my son's 52 pounds, carry him back into his bed exhaustively. And then I would not go back to sleep and I'd spin thinking about all the things I have to do. And I've just accepted that they are missing human interaction and connection. And as much as I would love to not have 4 people and a dog in my bed, that is my reality until they reconnect with other folks. And so I'm just giving myself grace that they're not going to sleep in my bed until they're teenagers. They do start in another room and they sneak in the middle of the night when they know I'm too exhausted to carry them back. And I've just accepted that, you know, and selfishly, like I used to judge my friends. I'm like, if your 6-year-old still sleeps with you, what are you talking about? I'm like, nope, forget it. Like there are no more rules anymore. I'm gonna let them do what they instinctively need, and we'll get them back in their own beds eventually. So
I love that. I put it in the chat, such a mama mentality that you were able to consider their needs. And I think that's just so sweet. And I think it does make an impact on them.
I can chime in. On the work side, one thing I've done is just that, you know, I used to be, you know, sort of make sure I got my inbox down to 0 every day, like close all those, you know, loops and feel like I didn't leave anyone hanging. And now I definitely feel like I'm in a mode of, if it's not mission critical for work or family, it sort of doesn't make the cut anymore. So there are a lot of emails that don't need me to chime in, don't need a response. Maybe they're from outside the organization and it's just not, you know, not something that's really necessary. And I just let it go and I just don't even look at them anymore. And that's a new thing for me. And similarly to what Rebecca said in terms of, I think we're a family that was fairly, you know, structured, and we had a lot of thoughts on screen time, for example, and really tried to keep those on the low end of the spectrum so that our kids were as high achieving as possible and all those things. And that just eventually went out the window. You know, at first it was a real struggle, but at some point it just broke because the reality was we did need screens to be a babysitter for some periods of time in the day, so that we could hold our jobs down. And you know what, the kids are just fine. You know, they have a lot more screen time than they used to, but we're making it work. We actually got my son an Xbox and he talks to his friends while playing Xbox, and they play together, and it's actually social. So it's worked out well, but I can tell you, you know, a year ago, if I had looked at the report and seen the number of hours that I see now, you know, I would have fainted probably, but oh well, they're fine.
Stephanie, I agree. I feel the same. I mentioned earlier, you know, trying to set Charlotte up on the schedule and then being like, forget it, it's not going to happen. And I think that's part of, you know, redefining our definition of achievement is just letting go of, you know, some preconceived, you know, notions or expectations that we had before all of this, because, you know, we're not living in, you know, normal reality anymore, right? So, you know, I think we all had to pivot and adjust to, you know, whatever works for our families. You know, some people, you know, can their kids can do just fine with that, and some can't. But I agree, like Charlotte was begging me to get Roblox, which I know nothing about and still don't, but she has like some friends on there, and you know, they can like chat and do, you know, I don't know, whatever you do on Roblox, but they love it. And I agree, it's that little social interaction, you know, that they really need. I would say personally, you know, and I'm sure most mom lawyers can relate, like you want to do everything yourself, you know, to a certain level that, you know, you would want it to be done. And, you know, it would not only at work, but at home too, like, oh, I'm going to make the best meal every night and I'm going to, you know, do this or that. And, you know, I've sort of things, and this may sound silly, but things I would never do, like buy store-bought mashed potatoes, I'm 100% fine with now, because who has time to do that on a weeknight? Not me. And it was actually through a suggestion in the MothersEsquire Facebook group, someone who recommended a sort of like meal planning service. And it's just made life much simpler. But it was just letting go of, you know, those own sort of silly expectations I put on myself of, you know, I'm going to be the best mom who's going to make the best home cooked meal every night. But once, you know, like my kids are fed. That's all I'm worried about. They're fed, whether it's store-bought mashed potatoes or I made them myself.
All of the nodding heads of everyone. Yep, that's the point.
Yeah, I think
I can
outsourcing
relate.
things you never thought about outsourcing before, like meals. I mean, sometimes, yeah, but like so much more, or takeout, so much more. And yeah, you know, even like paying someone to come and do like cleaning or outside babysit, you know, stuff that I never would have really done before. But yeah, you just have to get some time back.
We had a really busy weekend a couple weekends ago, and we had, 5 people in our house, so much laundry. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to drop it off to the laundry service, and it's expensive, but that's okay. It's not an every weekend thing, but it saved my life that weekend. And all I have to do is put it away. So that, outsourcing 100%.
Yeah, I know. I get the whole food thing, and that's something I've given myself grace in. I used to be very particular about having like at least a fully healthy meal, just having the vegetables in, making sure they have their protein. And I'm like, now lunch is like, oh, here's a frozen burrito, warm it. Costco has been a lifesaver. Their frozen food aisle is really good. And if it says organic on it, it can't be that bad. And so that's one thing. I've just been like not having like high expectations of whatever I'm having for dinner. And the other thing is I've reined back my tiger mom. My boys are in middle school and high school, and I used to have like constant check this Grade Pro app they used in school to see assignments turned in on time. Their grades are still good. And I told them, I'm not going to check anymore unless I get an email from your teacher saying you've not turned in something. I'll check it once in a way, but I'm not going to be on your case. You have to take over responsibility for your grades, and I'm not going to remind you. That has really helped our relationship, because I'm not like, you didn't turn in this assignment, it's overdue. I just said, just show me the grade sheet at the end of the 6 weeks, and I'm happy if your grades are good. So that does help. Just that has been the way I've given myself grace. Less expectations.
Mm-hmm. Kate, I saw you muting and unmuting. Did you have...
Yeah, no, all good. All good. This is honestly, I'm getting such great ideas right now. I'm like, I gotta go get those taquitos. Those sound amazing.
They are unreal.
For me, I've actually had to, because and it's the same themes that we've heard. There is no me time, because it is, I don't have an 8-hour day. I don't have a 10-hour day. I easily have a pretty consistent 12-hour day. And then it's oh gosh, I've got to really focus time on my family. So I've been starting my days earlier to make sure that my work time isn't bleeding into my family time, which means there's no me time. And so I've gotten to a point where I've now blocked an hour every day in my calendar in the middle of the day. And depending on the day, like it's different, like it's 11 to 12 today, it's 1 to 2 today. However, I've done that every day. So I can actually have a moment to say, you know what, I'm going to sneak out and get into the hot tub at 1 o'clock in the afternoon right now, because nobody else is going to get into the hot tub at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And it's going to be amazing. And I have found that's helped me reset, not only a energy reset, but quite honestly, an attitude reset in the middle of the day, going, okay, I got my afternoon now. This is so much better. But that it has now become an invaluable part of my day, where I now find myself checking my calendar going, oh my God, when's my hour? I need it coming. And but it's okay for me to actually take that time in the middle of the day.
And I love this question, particularly because I feel like, because as I mentioned earlier, we're all naturally high achievers. It's easy to put ourselves last in a lot of situations. But, when you're on that plane, they tell you to put your mask on before you put it on for your kids, and you have to take care of you. even if that means setting up some new boundaries or being really, really clever, like Shiro with the plans with getting the kids out of the house. Having that me time and getting some time back to yourself, I think is really invaluable and a huge takeaway. And let's move on to our next question because we are a little over halfway through. The New York Times published an article on the She Russian. News on this topic is revealing that the COVID unemployment rate is largely hitting women, and women are either losing their jobs or going part-time to care for their families at home. And my question is, have you experienced the effects of the She Russian in your firms or companies, or do you have close friends or family that have personally experienced this?
I'm happy to talk about that one from a Ruby perspective, because we are about 70% of our population are hourly workers, and 70% of that population are females. So we have a large female population who are hourly workers. And when COVID hit and shelter in place happened and kids ended up at home and family members ended up at home and roommates ended up at home, we saw literally overnight the ability to work was cut by 35%. And unfortunately, for an hourly worker, you don't get paid when you reduce your hours. And so we then started to see a huge ramp in requests for leaves. I need a leave of absence. I need a medical leave. I need a mental health leave. And it spiked 200%. And it wasn't because everyone was really struggling. And that mental health element, and we started to get feedback as we started to explore, how do we safely open offices? When can that possibly happen? A lot of our requests started coming and going, I don't know when my kids are going to go back to school. Do I have to go back to the office? I think I need to move out of downtown, a major metropolitan area, whether it be our offices in Kansas City or our offices in Portland. And I need to move further out of town because I can't afford to live in the city anymore, which means I might not be able to come to an office anymore. And so there's these super complex problems that are impacting not only all of the younger population that are females, but the single moms, the parents where one parent has to stay home, and very often it is the female. And unfortunately, we've seen it in all of our data going, wow, this has terribly impacted our population. So we've been trying to do everything we can from, okay, we don't want you to lose income, which then adds a financial stress to your life. So do you want to break your shift up? Do you want to move your shift to an overnight shift? Do you want to do 2 hours and 3 hours and 2 hours around your children's schedules? And how do we add more mental health resources and additional support for making sure everyone's got tools to manage through this, versus your option being, well, you either fit in this box or you find the door, because that's not a good option.
I love that. And I've definitely seen that shift in efforts that we've put in to be so accommodating. And I know I'm not a single mom. I'm not a mom. I have fur babies and that's about it. And my husband, who is a baby of sorts. And it's just so awesome to be a part of that kind of a community. And I love to see that. And I think with every problem that we're faced with COVID, there are so many clever and amazing solutions as well.
So, I'm at a small firm, so thankfully haven't experienced, that personally myself, but I have had, several friends in our local legal community who, had experienced that. Some moms, some not, but it's been really tough. And I think, at least in the legal community, a lot of it is dependent on, where your practice areas are. I know several firms who closed up overnight and just were gone because they didn't have the income coming in anymore. So I do know it's been a major thing in the legal community. And Kate, I think that's amazing that you sort of adjusted how you view operating your business to help those people when they needed to. And I think that without employers be willing to make those changes, you're just not going to keep, you're not going to keep the folks that you need to. And I think that moving forward, there's going to be an expectation, I think, of, some of this to continue because, like you talked about, those people moving out of town because they can't afford it anymore. Those aren't short-term type of things sometimes. So, I think that the flexibility of being remote, being able to live in other places, I think is going to be essential moving forward. And I think really that will only help women, especially when, we're caregivers to younger children or caregivers to parents as they age. I think that isn't going to go away. So great job on making those changes, and I hope many more employers, follow.
Yeah, I have to see, like my clients are mainly large law firms and they've really gotten a lot more flexible with the lawyers and with the staff just because they had to. I mean, it was really mostly the women staying home with the kids, but yeah, you have to give some flexibility or people are just going to quit if they can.
I certainly feel lucky that it hasn't impacted me personally, but I mean, one example that comes to mind is one of my closest, oldest friends is an attorney in Southern California. She's a somewhat fairly recently divorced with 4 kids under the age of 12. And so her life was complicated as it was before this. And she had made a switch right before COVID from her own nonprofit legal practice that she founded and ran. So she had ultimate flexibility because it was her organization. And but economic, circumstances changed with her divorce, and so she went to go work for a private practice where her billable rate was sort of everything. And then COVID hit, and she's a single mom with 4 kids trying to figure out how to get in her hours and deal with life. That was very, very stressful for her. And the other thing that came to mind was just tied to my last answer, but how one of the things I've just stopped doing is networking. And I feel like networking is a really important part of being a professional and frankly, being a woman. I feel like it often plays a bigger part in some ways. And that's just something I don't do anymore. And while that's fine right now, I think about the downstream impact of, just sort of taking that hit to building my professional network over the course of my career. And it's certainly small compared to, losing a job, but it is something that I've sort of sacrificed because it's non-essential essentially.
And I love listening to you all because I don't really know what my future will look like, but I see people adjusting. I see people listening to friends and trying to understand their circumstances and make those changes applicable where they can be in their personal lives. And I hear the word supermom thrown around a lot, and you might have been called supermom in the past. And that's kind of what I was thinking as you all were talking about this. I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys are like supermoms. This is crazy. How do you get so much done? And I think it's important to know that if you're called supermom, Superman in comics and in movies doesn't get it done by himself. He always has that help. He always has that aid. So just because you're supermom, and I know that can make you feel like you're up on a pedestal, even one of the greatest superheroes of all time has to have people to lean on. I think that's a big takeaway too. All right, anyone else want to chime in? If not, we can pop on to our final question.
Wanted to just piggyback on what Stephanie said, because I think that networking piece is really important. So I don't think it's a small thing, like especially for women in our profession and women lawyers. It's a big thing because you're building those relationships with people, you're finding mentors, you're finding job opportunities. For law students, they are, meeting prospective employers, and all of that now is, for the most part, reduced to like these virtual arenas where, you can't really get to know somebody in a Zoom of 200 people. So I think for women and probably also, minorities and people of color, they're really going to see downstream the, negative impacts of not having all these networking opportunities where, you do have those relationships and get to meet people that you wouldn't otherwise. When COVID first Pitt. I was at the time president of our local Women Lawyers Association, and it's one of our biggest things is luncheons and networking events, and we have these like judicial receptions, and of course it's fun to get together and see your friends, but the purpose of the organization is really to build those relationships with other attorneys, with the judiciary, and that everything that has been canceled and has been nearly a year now. So for new attorneys looking for mentors or kids in law, students in law school, they're those opportunities are really important. So I think that the networking piece is very important. And I think that we're trying to handle it as best we can virtually with groups like MothersEsquire and what we're doing on the Zoom, but sometimes you just can't replace that in-person component. So hopefully one day we'll get back to that, but I think it is a very important piece.
Yeah, and just I'm going to plug this in, and I did cut out most of my networking, but I picked and chose where I really I picked the groups I wanted to be in, but not because of the networking opportunity, but also the support structure the group gave me, and like just finding the social connection among those people in it. And like MothersEsquire has been, and the MothersEsquire active group, which we started during COVID to just help each of us like stay active, cheer each other on, has like, just as it gives me a networking opportunity, but it gives me connections to people who think like me, who share tools with me, give me ideas about how to deal with each situation. And so you might not be able to go for every networking event. I did a few Zooms at the beginning and then I just gave it up. Most of the time, if it was just like more than 10 people, you don't get a chance to talk. But just finding your niche of people you want to keep in touch with does help and keep you in the picture.
And this ties in perfectly with the next question as well regarding resources. And I love this because MothersEsquire itself is a fantastic resource even for networking. And I think networking, we're going to learn there are going to be new modalities of networking. I know a lot of us have heard of the app Clubhouse. That's new networking, very casual networking. And even situations where you're a part of social groups like MothersEsquire, a bit more casual networking, but give yourself some grace. I mean, you don't necessarily have to dedicate that time to networking when you're a part of these groups and you're being active in these groups and you're impacting lives of members. So I just think that is one of the most fantastic pieces about MothersEsquire, and another reason we were honored to join. And on that note, since we are running shorter on time, if you all could give me one tip, tool, or resource that has helped you survive COVID that might be beneficial to folks listening, I would love to hear what you all have to say.
I'm happy to take this one. And again, my team knows what I'm going to say because they laugh and watch me bounce on the screen during meetings now. A treadmill. So I need to be active, and in pretty much I'm one of those multitaskers all the time. And I have actually found that because I don't make enough time in my day, and even though I create this 1 hour, that 1 hour I kind of want for downtime and not active time. And so I've gotten the fold down under the desk treadmill so that when I can't really get out and go for a run outside, or when the weather is the weather like it is right now, I can still get some activity. And what I've actually found is it helps me focus even better, because since my brain is wired to multitask, it takes that second task away and it forces me to focus on exactly what I'm doing. And so I'm more present in meetings. I'm way more focused. And quite honestly, if I'm not focused on what I'm doing, I'm going to fall off and there's going to be a physical consequence. But I highly recommend it, because I've found that even in a normal hour one-on-one meeting, I'm walking 6,000 steps in that meeting and going, wow, that was just like, I've got half my exercise done. They're like, this is great. And it re-energizes my my body and my mind at the same time.
I'll go next. My tool has been taking my dog for a walk. I'll stop working as once my consultations are over, and I'll just log off and go for a walk with my dog. And sometimes I'll plan it so it's on my sister's commute to work, so I get to call her. And she's the one person I can chat to without and I know she won't judge me. She lives in Australia. So having her on the other end does help. And just walking has been the tool that it has helped me decompress, get some exercise in, get some fresh air, and also catch up on calls I haven't made to family and friends.
For me, I'd say getting outside, making sure my kid gets outside and gets exercise too. And then, yeah, I'd say like once or twice a month, I have quarantini calls, like Sunday night with drinks with old college friends. And it's just a nice catch up. And maybe now it's down to once a month because no one has that much new to say, but it's just nice to catch up with everyone and hear how they're coping too. Yeah.
The walking, dog walking and walking in general has been a big thing. I couldn't do the treadmill because I would definitely fall off very quickly. So I do the actual walking thing, and we've sort of added, my husband and I will sometimes walk the dog together, which is something, there's no reason we couldn't have done it before COVID, but it just seemed inefficient. Why would we both go if just one of us could go and the other could be making dinner? But we do that together, and that's like our 10 minutes of, twice a week alone. But also my son, we've asked him to start walking the dog during his school break. And sometimes I'll go with him, and that's time that we, didn't exist before, that something we do together, because I would have been, at the office and he would have been at school, and that just wouldn't be happening. So those have been nice additions.
Those walks, my favorite picture on my phone is, my in-laws are a mile away, and Portland is sleeping usually when I'm dropping folks off at early in the morning here in Chicago. And so I was walking the kids to my in-laws, and to Stephanie's point, like, it was so inefficient. Like, why would I do that? That's going to take 30 minutes when I actually could get it done in 10. Why would I don't have time to do that. And it's pretty cold here in Chicago, and we've got feet of snow, and my son's like, when do we get to walk again? And I would normally never have spent that quality time with him, and just hearing his imagination as we're on walks and the questions that he asks, that like I couldn't have created that moment if I wasn't forced to try to create that moment. And so we're gonna keep that up. My husband's not a big fan of the walking or bike riding. He's like, have fun, and then, but it's fine because the one-on-one time with the kids is precious to me. So I'll take it.
Rebecca, some of my favorite childhood memories, we lived out in the country, and it was me riding my bike as my mom jogged. And sometimes we didn't talk, but a lot of times she said the same thing that you said. I would ask these weird questions, and whenever she got back, she would write them down so that she could remember them later. And that's precious. I love it.
Yeah, that's also the main reason we do a lot of hiking. It's as you'll realize when you get to the teenage years, they talk less and less with you. So being forced to walk next to you is one of the ways they'll talk to you. And we do tea together most evenings. I'll make tea, and we'll sometimes make a cake, and we'll sit down and have tea together. And I've got my older one hooked on tea. I'm still working on the second one.
Shiro, you're just full of really good ideas. I love this tea time. That sounds great. For me, it's not so much like an activity, but I think something I've started doing that's helped me through this is saying no. Pre-COVID, it was, yes, I'll volunteer for everything, no matter what. And, COVID starts, and some of it was forced, right? I didn't really want to say no, but I just didn't have the capacity. And now, it's been a little while, and I'm more comfortable and confident, saying no. And I've realized time, my mental health, all of that is limited in what I can give. And And so I've, become a lot more confident saying no, especially to work. Previously I would just have the mentality of, okay, I'm gonna get taken whatever, I can figure it out. And no, there's some cases I should not have taken. And now I'm okay, no, good luck with someone else. But so that for me is just what I've come out of COVID with, or we're still going through. But just being more confident in saying no and knowing when it's good for me to take on something or not.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And that's not easy. I am a very non-confrontational person, and I also like a challenge. So someone says, do it. And I'm like, all right. But saying no, I think that that's extremely valuable. And one of the reasons that Ruby became a sponsor with Mothers Esquire is the team here knew that members needed a resource for them to help them survive COVID. And even once COVID is done, just your day-to-day lives. And with Ruby, our main services, if you're not too familiar, we do live virtual receptionist services as well as live chat services. So how often is your phone ringing and you're in the middle of something, or you're at home with your kids, or you're on that walk with your dog and you're like, right now, I really don't have the capacity. I really just, I don't need to take this call, but I have to take this call. And that's where we can come in to help relieve you and provide some aid for you. Our receptionists are all live, based locally out of Portland or Kansas City areas. But now, because of COVID, we're able to go to other states, which is always very, very exciting. But it's always a real person. And it's always someone like myself. I was our very first chat specialist, actually. And it's an honor whenever we get to give you time back to your day, because your lives are very, very difficult, and just there's so much happening. So if we can take even a small semblance of normalcy and give that back to you, where you can walk with your kid and leave your phone at home and not worry about missing an important call, that's where we can come into play. Or if you're worried about workload and you need more clients and you're just not able to get that, lead generation questions. I know that's also a stress and a trigger. And that's where our chat service can come into play and really making your marketing dollars that you're investing convert. So it's our honor to support you and be a part of this group. And I'm so thankful for the time we had here today. In the chat, I'm going to send out a link. If you click that, that is just a little form where you can fill it out and learn a little bit more about Ruby. You're not signing up for anything. It's just an option for you to just check us out and see what we have to offer, and if we can be a part of your life and making your life a little bit easier. And then that promo code is just MESQ panel. And with this, you all will receive $50 off of your first 3 months of service as well. And if you have any questions, I forgot to copy paste this one, but if you have any questions, please feel free to email us at partners@ruby.com, and I can be the person to give you a buzz, just talk about your questions. But also, if you just need resources in general, we are a fount of knowledge. We have amazing team members. And if you have questions, even if it's not related to the service, send it our way. Use us as a resource, network with us, get to know us. We want to get to know you and actively be a part of you and help you grow during these really difficult times. And just to close everything out, this has been amazing. I must give a great big thank you to Farah for putting this all together. She did so awesome with these really thought-provoking questions. And again, we are just so honored to be a part of this organization and look forward to serving you all very faithfully.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. And I know that Susan, Shiro, and Sarah will join me in thanking our wonderful Ruby family and making this possible for Mothers Esquire and to share with our amazing members. Spending this time with you all has really shed the light for me on how amazingly mission aligned Ruby and Mothers Esquire is. And we thank you so much for offering these perks to our beautiful, wonderful, hardworking members.
Absolutely. And again, thank you all for your time. I know it's not easy to pull an hour out of your day. So really, thank you so much.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye.